Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another video series here in this channel, this one called 10-minute reviews. So in these videos, I'm going to be reviewing a random animation that I pick from my Discord server that you guys submit for feedback, and once a week I'll give you my 2 cents on what I think about animation, what I think about your animations I should say, and how they can be improved on, right? Now, how do you submit your work? Well, you go to my Discord server if you actually haven't joined yet, and submit your work to the animation feedback channel, as you can see right here. Now for today, I'm going to review Daniel Reyes' animations, and the reason why is mainly because he was the very first person to add his work to the server, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much, Daniel, for joining the server and for submitting your work. Really cool stuff, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on what I think. Now stay tuned to the end, because there is a way for you guys to actually get a little bit more than this 10 minutes. But for now, let's get to it and let's review Daniel's work. So we have my notes here on the left and Daniel's work on the right. So I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock and we're going to get started. Now, first and foremost, let's check Daniel's work and see where he's at. All right. Cool. So, Daniel, I like the idea overall of your animation. However, there's quite a lot of things that need to be changed and improved on in order for you to really squeeze the most entertainment out of this piece. Now, the very first thing that I should say, and this is why I have my notes here on the left, is that I want to talk a little bit about the importance of reference. Because I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, once again, answer to me on the Discord server whenever you have a second, but I have a feeling that perhaps you didn't take reference when you animated this, or if you did took reference, then you didn't really analyze the reference well enough to really get the whole gist of the animation, right? And is a problem that I see with a lot of people that are getting started with animation, because what happens is that they will start animating and the very first thing they want to do is get into Maya and then start animating, right? Without really thinking about exactly what are they gonna animate in the end and the plan that you need to take in order to get your animations to look as good as possible. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this is because I think that you should actually take reference of yourself making this movement, because if you actually shoot reference of yourself, both from the side, from the front, from the back, as many camera angles as you can have, you will start understanding what your body is doing and the timing that it's doing it at, right? So everything in your animation at the moment feels very fast. It's almost like you want the animation to get there as fast as possible, and that kind of deters from the enjoyment from the audience to see your animation, right? There's nothing much that I can look at right now and be like, this is really awesome, because there's so much stuff happening at all times that I don't know as an audience to know where to focus. So I think that your very first step should be to grab a camera or two with a friend perhaps, or just set the camera on a bench somewhere and go outside and then try to make this movement, try to get this movement, and then do it in a naturalistic way, right? Don't rush it. Really take your time to get into a certain pose. So if you actually are to put the mask on and then take the knife out, right? Don't rush each move. Just do one first, and then go back to the second one. Then take a moment to actually kind of like go into the anticipation to then go back into the final move, right? So this is basically what you need to do. Now, the step after taking the reference, and I highly advise you do this, is that before you jump into Maya, just slow down and look at your reference. Maybe do draw overs. I like to do that a lot, just to draw over my videos and just see what my body is doing, right? And most importantly, when you do those draw overs, make sure that you extract the golden poses. You extract the things that are the most important in the animation. So the poses that are the most important in your animation. So in your case, I think that is going to be something like this. So main pose, and then it's going to be something like putting the mask on. That's going to be another one, and then taking the knife off, and whatever that she's doing with the knife, which I'm thinking she's probably spinning it on one finger. At some point, you're going to have that motion, like maybe like knife here, knife there, just to give the indication that it's spinning. And at that point, you should actually kind of like hit this pose, which is going to be another golden pose, right? Make sure you make it as strong as you possibly can, and then you go forward. So those are the things that you need to extract from your reference. So make sure you do the reference as best as possible, do your best acting possible, and then extract the golden poses ready for you to animate. Now, second point, which I mentioned here, is that at the moment, your biggest problem in your animation is that everything is hitting at the same time. So if you notice here, you'll see that like she's actually putting the mask, taking the knife, taking a step back, and moving backwards all at the same time. So you kind of have three actions that are happening at the same time that shouldn't happen at the same time, right? Putting the mask is going to be like step number one. Taking the knife should be step number two. And at that point, you should be completely still. There's no reason for you to be moving backwards, right? Only whenever you're ready. So you put the mask, take this off. At this point, you're like, okay, this is done. Action one is done. Action two is about to happen. When I start taking my knife off, that's when I can start thinking about moving backwards, right? So this is why you have to break down your moves. Now, the biggest reason, and it's another thing that I see in a lot of young animators, the biggest reason why this is happening is that at the moment, even though your animation looks like is very much blocking, but you're already splining things. So the way I like to work is that I like to work in blocking as much as possible. So I like to think about it as almost like you are drawing it on paper, right? So you basically kind of like set your golden poses, as I mentioned before, and then you continue to animate in steps by adding extra information in between your golden poses, right? You don't go into spline until you have enough information to basically tell Maya that this is the animation that I have is very strong, there's a lot of detail, and then I go into spline. You are kind of far away from going into spline at this point, so you need to add more information. You need to know exactly how your animation goes from point A to B to C, and as you go through it, you're going to get more information, and then when you feel like the animation is kind of working in blocking, you can go into spline to kind of polish it a little bit, right? Now, I'm kind of running out of time. I only have about 3 minutes, so I'm going to go through this quite fast. So another thing for you to think about, and this is point number 3 in my notes, is that you have to think about your animation in context. Even before you actually go into your blocking, before you take reference, you have to think about the context of your animation. What are you trying to say or do within this animation? Why is this important, right? What is the character thinking? The more you go into depth about getting into the character's head and to think about what you want to portray to your audience, the better your animations are going to be, because it's going to feel like your animations have a meaning, right? So that's the second point. That's the third point. If this is a game animation, then you have to think as well, and this is point 4, about what is the character doing when the player has the controller in his hands. This to me feels like an animation that probably happens just before an idle animation happens, right? So if you load into a level, you see this animation of the character going into a certain position, and then the character just stays there and then idles for the player to have an input. So you have to think about, in game context, where is this animation happening? Now, another thing that is happening as well, and I have 2 minutes left, is that all moves are equally as important in your animation as it is right now. So because everything is hitting at the same time, so as you are thinking about these moves and you're separating them and you're making sure that they're hit at different points, there's going to be moves that are going to be slightly more important than others, right? So once again, going back to that context, going back to what you want to say to your audience, this is basically where that happens. So to me, looking at this animation, if I was animating this, getting that knife out right, is the very most important thing that you can actually tell the audience, right? Something is happening, my knife is really important to me, so I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna get in position to go into combat. So putting the mask on and going backwards is slightly less important. I would argue that putting the mask on is like the least important thing that is happening right now. Based on that priority list, you have to add or pay more attention to the movement and add more flourish, right? And make it bigger because you want to make sure that the audience is looking at what's more important, right? And 1 minute left. So last but definitely not least, you actually have to think about your animation in beats, right? In terms of beats. So how many beats do you have in order to tell the story of the animation? In this case, you have taking off the mask, it's perhaps 1 beat. Taking the knife, it's another one, right? And then actually anticipating and going backwards, it's another one. And then finally going into your final position. So you have about 3 or 4 beats that you have to hit. Once again, the beats are pretty much like the moves, and basically the moves need to be some more important than others, right? So depending on the importance, you're actually going to add more emphasis to a certain beat or a certain move that happens when the character is doing it. And that actually makes up for the whole time that I had to do this review. I hope it was useful. 10 minutes is not a lot of time. Now, Daniel, make sure you do these things. Make sure that if you have any questions, ask them in the Discord server. Same goes for everybody else that is watching this review. Now, if you like this is basically a little taster of what I normally do in my workshops, right? My workshops are basically either an hour, a week, or a month that you can spend with me. And basically, I will look at your work and then give you feedback on your work based on what you're at the moment. And that really doesn't matter if you are a junior or somebody that has never animated or somebody that has 20 years experience that wants some tips from me because perhaps you feel stuck. What I bring in is fresh eyes and a lot of experience in animation that hopefully I can share with you to make your journey a little bit easier because, you know, animation can be quite lonely, so I'm here to help you out. Now, if you are interested, for this week only, for the rest of this week, I have a 50% discount on my prices because from next week onwards, I have a new website with new pricing and, you know, it's gonna look a little bit better. So for this week, if you are interested in joining me for my workshop, check out harveynewman.com and then go to the workshop tab, check out the details. And if you're interested, I'll be looking forward to working with you. And that's all I had for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy. This is a new section, a new video series. So I'm gonna be doing this every week if I can. If you guys enjoy it, drop a comment down below, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. And until next week, stay well, stay safe. Peace.